be able to. There we go.
So
Okay.
I don't know if you record it to the cloud, it'll get a link, and then you can just send it to me when you're done.
Okay. And I think sometimes I just put it my computer, but I'll send it to you regardless.
Yeah. All right. All right.
Yes.
So we're doing today this. So this is April 23rd, 9:09 a.m. Pacific time. We're going over Tempest Labs. So we have a reference for later if you're trying to find something. And what I was going to say about Tempest is we basically order every test that they have available. And the way most doctors do things, they'll say, oh, based on your type of cancer, this is unlikely. And then what happens is if you're the 1 in a million person that actually is positive for something, no one ever knows about it. So you don't even get a treatment that could be real, simple to help you. So I'm going to share now. Oh, you know what? Oh, I see. So it says you're sharing, so I can't share. Let me see here. Okay, it's letting me do it now. All right,
Okay.
so can you see this Tempest report
Right
on
now.
your?
Yep.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So then, all right. So if you look through this report, it's 43 pages. What happened is as we got some of the other reports, my staff was uploading them. You only need this one file that has everything. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind. Now, if there's anything not in here, I'll let you know because we sometimes there's certain things that are not in here. So first on the left side, see it says XT, and that's the name of the test, and then it says 648 genes. The reason why I would have every person with cancer do this test is because it's the largest genetic panel available right now to people with cancer.
Okay.
So what happens is if you go to the like say your hospital and they do what's called either somatic mutations or oncogenetics, they may do like 3 genes or 10 genes.
I
So
did 40.
yeah,
Yeah. But
but you
not
see,
600.
right. So what happens then is you get a very limited number of options available. And there's because of a visual bias effect, let's say if we did one genetic test and you're positive for that, we're thinking that's the way to go for treatment. But when you do 648, you may find that some genes, there's a greater number of cells that have that. And as a result, it might be a better target for treatment. Now, the
Right.
way that you look through this sort of oval or elliptical type is supposed to be a pill. It's supposed to be like an icon for a pill. And
Got
the
it.
idea is if it's black, then there's going to be actionable treatment options, meaning like and would specifically an FDA approved therapy for your condition. When it's white, what that typically means is there's no actual treatment recommendations made. So then down over here, it'll say no reportable treatment options found. But there's a number of limitations. One is the labs will only recommend something that's FDA approved for your condition. So let's just say there is a drug, and let's just say it's for men with prostate cancer. If you have that mutation, it would work for you, but because it hasn't been studied yet, it would be considered off-label use, which is not illegal, but then insurance won't cover it. So
Right.
that most people never get told, hey, there's this other drug for this other condition. And just to kind of put things in perspective, every cell in our body has every gene. So if I have a BRCA mutation in cancer in my colon, right, that's a colon cancer. But if a woman has in her breast, it's a breast cancer. But it's the same mutation. What's different is the anatomy, like the anatomical location. What the science is saying is the drug works in either place, assuming the drug can get there. Now, let's say if it was that mutation was in the brain, there may be a barrier. If it was in a certain part of the anatomy, where it may be more difficult to get to, that could be an obstacle. But in terms of like the drug binding to that genetic mutation, it would be any cell in the body that it could access.
Okay.
And this is where science has advanced so rapidly. FDA is still going off of outdated strategies. So we thought of cancer that, first we thought all cancer was the same. Then we thought it was different based on anatomy. And we basically now know, even within a single tumor, there's a lot of variability on the cancer cells. So that's why you need multiple weapons. So, so the lab isn't going to give you anything here. Now, what you could do is what you did is you could look on PubMed or other medical databases. You could even go to Google Scholar, and you could find all kinds of natural options that there's different strategies to attach to this. So one of the things that to look at here is TP53 is, let me just check. I believe it's a tumor suppressor gene.
The TP53 is a protein that promotes cell death. So it signals the cells that are bad to die.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so you have the gene is what leads to the production of the protein. So TP53 is, think of it as, it's the same name for different structures. So
Uh-huh.
it's like the directions, and then one does the action, if you will. And so one of the reasons why, I don't know if you remember, we also ordered a proteomics test. That's the Onconomics
Yeah.
DX. I don't believe that's in yet. And yeah, that's not in yet, as far as I could tell. Let me switch one more screen. So, well, we'll get back to that. But
Okay.
the thing about, can you see, do you see where it says TP53 is a gene? Can you see that on my,
Yes.
okay. So let me see if it shows you. How do I go there? Okay, so right in here where it shows you this P53,
Yeah.
how, see how this is pantothenic acid?
Yeah.
So this is where like B vitamins, and then see how cholesterol, and then so you have to make cholesterol, then part of this fragment from HMG-CoA reductase comes down to this adenosine monophosphate kinase here. So in other words, like there's the P53 interacts in two different areas. And what that ultimately does is it basically functions as a tumor suppressor. And so let me see here. So that's what I was saying. Sometimes it'll just say TSP next to it. And let's see, how do I get this? Okay. Sorry, the meeting controls keep popping down every time I try to move around.
Yeah.
So it's my ability. I just got them hidden right now. So what I was saying about this is, so the function of this gene is to basically um, suppress the growth of cancer cells. And when you look here, this is saying it's a protein, and at the protein at this position in 146, there's a mutation at that amino acid. And the consequence is there's a loss of function. So, what this means is within the cancer cells, you have this mutation where there's basically there's not you're missing a major player that stops them from growing.
Yeah.
This is kind of common, so it's not like an unusual finding. Then these other guys, these PPM1D and this RPS, it's like an RPS6KB1. I'm not as familiar with those mutations, but it looks like it has something to do with how many copies are being made. So normally you have two copies of each gene,
Yeah.
and it looks like here there may be more than two being made.
Yeah.
And so this down here, the germline genetics basically says, hey, you weren't born with any of these. So this occurred after birth, basically.
Yeah.
Then pertinent negatives, this is basically saying, hey, nothing was found in these genes. In other words, the common mutations that they would expect wasn't found.
Right.
And if we go down here, this tells you like if your cancer would be a good candidate for immunotherapy, and there's nothing, basically it's not. You need it to be high for microsatellite instability. And
Mhm.
then see where it says 3.7 mutations uh, per mutational burden, it should be 10 or higher. And so basically, there's not enough.
Uh-huh.
So on one hand, you don't want a lot, but on the other hand, if there was, it would make things a little bit easier. Now, the
Yeah.
rest of this, we'll go through some of these things here. Let's go through the whole report and we'll talk about strategies. This just covers all the genetics that, all the genes that were looked at and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, so a lot of times people will say, how come there's two or more versions of the same report? And then what I'll remind you is that so we ordered the XT, which is a 648 genetic panel, and that report's running and they generate the results. But we also did your germline genetics, and then that gets done later. So then what happens is this report here was amended to, they basically rerun the analysis with
Yeah.
the genetic data that basically says, oh, by the way, these were, you weren't born with these guys, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm skipping past that, and now we get into this is the XF. So this is kind of one of those double-edged sword things. So basically, nothing was found in the blood. So on
Uh-huh.
the one hand, let's say if cancer has metastasized, there won't be anything found in the blood. On the other hand, in theory, there could be 100,000 mutations. And right now, this is the best lab in the world. They did 105. They just released 523 genetic panel for the blood. And we were just one of the first centers to start offering that.
Oh, wow.
They literally just started this like a week or so ago. So at some point in the future, that might be a test you would do. And keep in mind the basis for the Tempus and the Onconomics is not because I thought, you had like stage 4 metastatic disease going crazy. We
Right.
want to go like in the event cancer does progress or does come back or something along those lines, we want to have as much details already in our hand. So now we're not trying to wait 3 or 4 more weeks to get results and that kind of thing. So
And
we're just,
this is something that Greg can do right away with this new
yeah,
experiment.
absolutely. And with
Yeah.
him, I would probably push to get the 523 G.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he might tell you he's ahead of you.
Oh, 100%. I always said if and not that I want to do my whole treatment again, but I said, oh, if I had to do it again, I would do these things differently. And I'm like, well, Greg, now
Yeah,
you get to do it.
right. You gave him the shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not my first rodeo.
Yeah.
Oh, let me backtrack one thing. I didn't finish that whole thought. So with this guy here, so basically nothing was found, which on the one hand is good, but it could just mean that the reason why nothing was found is because there's only 105 genes, right? Like maybe if they did 648, let's say, maybe they would have found the TP53 or something like that. So then if we go down in here, oh, let's see. See, this tells you all the genes.
Yeah.
See, so they did do the TP53, so that's good. So
Yeah.
that means then the genes that were found up above, they actually tested the tumor tissue, and that's how they identified those genes.
Uh-huh.
Now they looked for those at least one of those genes in the blood, and it's not there. So what that means then is that it's a very low likelihood at this point of cancer spreading into the blood, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of what you want to
Yeah,
know.
that's good. Yeah.
Now, these are all kinds of different other tests that we did, and a lot of these normally they would not be run on your type of cancer, but in the event you were like the one in a million,
Uh-huh.
want to make sure that we know, what's going on. And so you're going to see a lot of them to say normal or negative or something to that effect. And then, oh, this one here, this looks to see. So it's says it's positive, and so it looks for a BRCA1 or two, or it looks to see if there's something else, which is basically like in a tumor suppressor pathway. And then when it tells you down here, let me see something. Hold on 1 second. I gotta switch to something else. I have to pull up another patient's info because I put notes in their chart that I think would be helpful for you.
And you know what I can do with this is I can take this piece and I can edit it with all, and I can take out this little stuff so it makes it very cohesive. So if you want to use this, you know, wrapped in the podcast, we don't have to double it over unless you want to double it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay. Here we go. All right. So this is what I was looking for. So on the let me see if I could do this. Go backwards here. Okay. Can you see your Tempest results now being shared on the screen?
Yep, we got it.
So what I wanted to do is, so if we look at um, so that DPYD, basically, what that is it's a test to look at if you have certain mutations, and
Uh-huh.
then if you have those mutations, it means that certain drugs like 5-FU and capecitabine may have high
Yeah.
toxicity for you.
Okay.
So basically, one, those two drugs weren't found to be effective on the prior tests, but two, you're normal. So in other words, there's no impact of this gene. Is my point. What I wanted to just make sure is you had a better understanding of what each mutation does.
Yeah.
And the next one, um, so this is the HRD, is what it's known as, a homologous recombination deficiency status. And basically, normally you have a BRCA mutation there. In your case, you have a positive somatic mutation without the BRCA mutations. That means there's something else going on. And so when you don't have the BRCA mutation, that means there's a loss of heterozygosity. And so the main reason why, like the main purpose, I should say, of doing this test is to see if someone would benefit from a PARP inhibitor type of treatment. So, generally speaking, the way most doctors would interpret this, if you're positive for BRCA1, they may, or BRCA2, they may look at a PARP inhibitor medication for treatment. In your case, you're negative for those two, but positive for something else. So it's unknown, would you benefit from a PARP I or PARP inhibitor or not? So there's that's just something is unique about the cancer cell line. So it's not as clear like a yes or no. It's like it's unknown. So these are the details that so going kind of back to when you had, let's say, the 40 genetic tests done, you're making a doctor's going to make a treatment plan based on what they know from that 40, right? But as you now expand to all these other areas,
Yeah.
gives other possibilities for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it more complicated. And the reason why most doctors don't do this extensive level of testing
Yeah.
is it takes time to go through all this, to read it, and then figure out a plan. So instead of doing that, they do what's called standard of care, where, hey,
Yeah.
you get this label, and this is how we handle that label. Now we get into what's called a DNA mismatch repair protein expression. Your stuff was all normal. And so if I go back to my notes somewhere. So these genes are responsible for correcting errors in the DNA. So if it was positive, it would the mismatch repair deficient cells usually have a lot of DNA mutations, which may lead to cancer.
Mm.
May set the stage where you might benefit from some form of immunotherapy. Some docs would use Keytruda, other docs would use other drugs. Your stuff was normal. So they run the same test. See here, so it says negative, and you're going to see it
Yeah.
usually again and again. It's kind of different tissue samples they're running the test. And basically, they were all negative. So there wouldn't be any benefit of immunotherapy.
Okay.
So think of it as they repeated the same thing 4 times. And the reason why they did it is they run it on different tissue samples.
Oh, wow.
And now here the genetic panel, it says this is what they tell you, hey, it was amended because of the analysis from the RNA sequencing.
Yes.
Basically, it didn't enhance the outcome. Like the results were still the same.
Okay.
Now it looks like okay, then we run a tumor origin test, and the reason is so in the past I have seen cases where someone was getting treated for a lung cancer or treated for a brain cancer, and all of their imaging was focused on their lungs or their brain. And then later on, it comes out that that was not the primary tumor.
Ah.
just started elsewhere, but because they discovered it in those areas, that's all they focused on.
Yeah.
I normally would be an advocate of people doing like we call a full body PET scan, which is like the base of your skull. So think of it as like your lower jaw and like the bone under the brain, all the way down. And typically it goes to mid thigh. Once in a blue moon, it might go just below knee, but it's usually mid thigh because those are the most common areas for cancer to grow. Like it's very rare you see cancer of the foot, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So what happens then is you get peace of mind knowing, okay, there's only cancer in this part of my body. So we always run a tumor origin test just because what a lot of times what I see is people are diagnosed, like there's such a rush to give a diagnosis. No one checks to see, well, were the methods the best methods to make that diagnosis. And so what you have now is think of it as we tell these guys, hey, find out what this cancer is. So there you go. And they say, yeah, 99% probability it's breast cancer. So that gives you peace of mind. Like it didn't start somewhere else, it's
Hmm.
99% likely it started there.
Yep.
And once in a while, we do find like 80%, 20% or some difference. And what that lets us know then is one of the reasons why that person's cancer might be unique is it has certain properties of other types of cancer. So that would be a case where you may want to look at, what's the treatment algorithm for the one cancer versus the other, and then where they cross, where there's similarities that might be where you get the highest likelihood of success for treatment.
Okay.
Now, this UDP, um, so this also has to deal with if you have a mutations and certain drugs can be toxic. And
Uh,
um, let's see here. So there just was, okay, so there is a mutation found. So what drugs would that be? Um, so this would be like irinotecan, and there's there's three other chemo drugs that I can't really pronounce. Gavedcan, Linostat, and sacituzumab.
yeah. Yeah.
Basically, those are the drugs that would be harder on you because of this mutation. In other words, you'd have more likely to have side effects. Now, I
Yeah.
think in the report, um, here we go. They're all listed right here.
Yeah.
I'll make this.
So this is very important. Like as Greg goes in getting all of this done pre-treatment, or anybody finding out the contraindications of the chemos to right.
Absolutely. And then here's where it gets challenging. So what should happen is this. So years ago, when a patient was put on a drug, they would have all kinds of blood work done to monitor the level of that drug in their blood.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, that disappeared because insurance companies didn't want to keep funding the tests for the drug.
Right.
And so let's say genetically, if me, you, and Greg are put on the same drug, well, one of us could be a slow metabolizer. So that drug would build up to a very high level in that person's body. Another person's normal, so the drug gets, normal levels. And the other person could be a rapid metabolizer, which means they're breaking that drug down fast. So between the three of us, because of genetic differences, one person could literally need three times the dose just to get the same effect. But that's ignored right now. Chemo is pretty much prescribed based on height. So if you lose weight during treatment and your metabolism is changing, you still get the same dose as when you started, which is why the toxicity is so high. They don't make adjustments, allowances that you would consider. And when we have situations where we could do full germline genetics, like a full genome, so we've done 22,000 tests, we look at what's happening with all the genes, we could then put in any drug into that person's, like, let's say we have an artificial intelligence platform that looks at their genetic mutations, And then we could tell if their body could handle that drug before
Oh,
they ever take it. But no one gets told that. So some people, handle a drug and they just genetically, they're fine. They have no reactions. Other people have, side effects, and some people have anaphylaxis where they can be near death because of an allergy to the drug. All of that could be avoided if you simply did the genetic testing of the germline genetics. But because everybody wants to save money on the
yeah.
testing insurance side, it's not done. So it's basically hey, we're gonna try this. If you have a reaction, we'll just give you some epinephrine or something. So even though you have near death experience, you get an EpiPen or something like that.
Yeah.
So what did this say? This has to deal with that first. One of the things that uh showed up here. So this patient is a carrier for Gilbert syndrome.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this has any relation, but my daughter at 1 week old did get breast milk. They called it breast milk jaundice, where
Mhm.
we had to put her in because she was turning jaundice, and they just put her in a incubator for a couple days.
So, so this basically, if this was, so it's typically recessive
Uh-huh.
for you, but it could be passed on to a child, and then it would be elevated bilirubin. So the way you would get tested, if your bilirubin levels are normal, then this is not expressed, right? It's still
Uh-huh.
recessive. So you could pass it on to a child, but it's on the likelihood of you having it is going to be pretty low.
Got it.
And then let's see what else is in here. So that's everything here. Then let me see. It looks like there's one other thing. Um, can you see the new report, or do I have to? Can you see the XG80?
Yes.
Okay. So here it tells you all the genes evaluated. And out of these 88, these are 88 genes for hereditary cancers who are negative.
Yeah.
So it tells you, so in one regard, you're normal, like roughly 90% of cases, people have a cancer that is not from anything they were born with, meaning it's a somatic mutation, meaning something from the environment caused that cancer.
Right.
And the current thinking is that, well, what could cause it? Well, we narrowed it down to it's either environmental toxins, mycotoxins, heavy metals, or pathogens. It's basically that straightforward. And despite, science kind of really narrowed it down, saying, hey, it's one of these four areas that's causing these problems. And the growing attention is 86,000 chemicals in the environment. There really hasn't changed the medical model and standard of care medicine.
Yeah.
They're ignoring all this stuff and still just targeting the cancer. And this is one of the reasons why there's such a high recurrence rate for cancer.
Yeah.
Chemicals aren't pulled out of the body, then you always have that vector for damaging the DNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let me see. I don't think your economics came in yet, did it? What holds this stuff up the most? So if we go back to the Tempest, um, so basically when you see like when they do this panel here on a tumor specimen, or same thing like the proteomics testing from Onconomics, they physically have to get the sample from the other lab. And so that process, labs have their agreements with each other. So one lab may be prioritized over another. So let's
Got it.
say this is gigantic. Maybe they get the sample faster, where MProbe that owns Economics, maybe they don't get it as fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see here. Uh, is there anything else you wanted to cover on the lab testing side?
No, that covers it.
When's the next time you're scheduled for blood work?
Oh, I just had blood work. I did not load it. Everything was normal. My CAT scan was normal. They didn't find anything. And on my last one, I think it was because I was super dehydrated because I did hot yoga and I taught a sweaty dance class. My creatine was up to 1.25, calcium was high, and an ERG. If you want to wait a minute, I can.
Yeah, just upload it now. We can look at it.
Okay. Let me see if I put that was on my list of things to do.
If you download it as a PDF, and then you should be able to upload it, so you don't have to necessarily print it or anything.
Yeah, I might have to go up on my September. I'm gonna have to go up on my Quest because I don't
Sure.
think it's down. Sorry, this might take just a moment.
It's all good.
Okay. In here.
There you go.
All right, view report. Do you want me to share it or
Just upload it.
upload? Okay.
Then I'll look from there, put it into your portal.
Okay, and let's see, is that uploading? No.
If you go to documents on you when you log in,
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get it from my
Quest,
Quest print, and let me save it as I got it. I'm going to save as a PDF.
yep.
Here we go. It's coming. And put it in my cancer file. Blood tests. Okay. And this is what's the date? It was April 2023. Labs. Okay. Location. All right, now I am going to my portal and load labs and documents, sign in again. Upload new document, choose file. Yes, I will delete this whole section here. Because everything, your explanations, everything is so thorough that I think it would be great just to copy and paste, right?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Also, when you get a chance, if you could upload that CT report.
Yeah, I don't know if I might have to get a copy of that. Yeah, request that from my office. Uploaded. Okay, so I've uploaded it.
Okay. Let me see here. Okay. All right. And then
My lymphocytes are still down, but maybe because I had a little allergy cold. But most of the other blood work was up.
okay. All right. Can you see them up? I have them shared right now.
It'll come up in just one moment. Yep, I got it.
So the creatinine, this test doesn't distinguish between exogenous and endogenous. So let's see.
I'm always a little high. I'm generally 1.05.
Are there other pages? Because it looks like it only pointed to one page.
Oh, Lordy. Yes, there were other pages.
So maybe it looked like maybe it did almost like a screen print as opposed to like to download the file.
Yeah, very. let me see it. Print. Okay, okay. Lab results only? Yes, let me do the simple. Okay. All right, here we go. Save as PDF. Okay, it should be coming. Yeah, I just had a follow up with the PA and I just let them know that I was still on the fence about taking the meds. The CTs looked good and she wasn't worried about anything in the labs.
Okay. Okay, give me one second. Almost done saving it.
Mm-hmm. As that's coming up, I have a random question. If, and I'm jumping to Greg, so you don't have to answer this now. Oh, well, okay, we'll stick to this.
We'll get to great stuff. Just don't forget the
No, it was something that could be related to the TP53, but we'll get to that.
Okay. So I wanted to see if they did a serum osmolality, and doesn't look like that was done. So that'll tell you for sure, like if you were dehydrated or something.
Ah, okay.
So
So the ERG, the GEFR, that yeah, that came up
yeah,
and that
so basically that stands for estimated glomerular filtration rate. This is just a calculation. So it takes
yeah.
your age. I don't know if it takes gender, but it takes your age and your creatinine level, puts in an equation. And
Uh-huh.
what's really weird is, so let's say if you were 20 versus if you're 70 and you have the same creatinine level, when you're 70, you would have low kidney function. And if you're 20 with the same level, you have normal kidney function. So what it basically says is the equation says you get older, your kidneys are getting jacked, but it doesn't really measure your kidney function. It just
Uh-huh.
uses your age against you. So,
Yeah.
so one way would be what I was going to say, if you have any supplements or any foods with creatine, your body will convert the creatine into creatinine. And this test does not make any distinction between whether you made it or whether it came from outside of you.
Okay.
So we suspected like there's some kidney issues. There's other tests we would run. One would be a urine microalbumin.
Yeah.
There's another one called cystatin C, and then they would tell you, hey, your kidneys are fine or not.
And
Now,
I went to a nephrologist because that what was a red flag, and they said I was fine.
yeah, yeah. So what stands out for me right now, this absolute lymphocytes is low.
Yeah.
So, the way that um, so the way typically the CBC is done like you would normally expect, but this is the sum of over 50 different cells. So if I tell you you're low, well then you don't know what you're low in. In other words, what guys are the lowest that are making it bringing this down? Because remember, this category here includes natural killer cells, cytotoxic T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, helper cells, like all these cells that you need for specialized roles. So if it's low, then one question would be why is it still low? And when I would look here, so platelets are fine, and then red blood cells are fine. So you don't have an issue with cellular synthesis. So that we eliminated like a problem from the bone marrow or something. So there's either then a lingering effect from prior treatments on immune system, or something is low, like maybe a nutrient or two that the lymphocytes need in order to be more robust.
Uh-huh.
And so my concern about the lymphocytes is that when we look at long-term outcomes for a variety of people with different cancers, the people that have chronically low lymphocytes, they have a hard time fighting cancer long term, which would
Right.
make sense because those are the guys that fight cancer. So if they're low, you're totally dependent upon outside treatments to
Yeah.
get the job done. So we want to, this is where things like exercise with oxygen therapy, so have certain mushroom extracts. They help boost up these natural killer cells so that you can do a better job of fighting, bad guys, if you will.
Yeah, I haven't been, because haven't been spending as much time up in LA. So my
Mhm.
exercise with oxygen has been a little bit less. I started the turkey tail again. I've been putting in mushroom powders. ACHH, that's what I took in the beginning of my cancer treatment a lot. I'm doing beta glucans, but anyway, specific, we'll talk about that when we get to treatments.
Okay, so what I would recommend is let me see. Have you had an ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, done recently?
No,
Let me
I
see.
don't.
Let me see in your prior labs. So it looks like it's mostly CBCs and CMPs that are being
Yeah,
run. So I'll send you so on this current list that you just had done, I would definitely follow up with anything that's low or high.
yeah,
Um, but so that would basically be a CBC CMP again. But
yeah,
then I would look at if you look at this the CA 2729. So we would run more protein antigens than just the two, verify they're all negative. And the way most doctors approach it, they say, well, this cancer doesn't normally express that protein. And statistically, yeah, maybe 80, 90% of the time that's correct. But if you're in the 1 out of 20 to 1 out of 10 or something like that, where it is expressed, then there's a blood marker that shows there's progression and no one's doing anything about it because they simply don't know about it. So there's some other markers that I'll send you. Just see if they'll run them. If they don't, legally, I can't run it through insurance, but we could order it and you could pay for it. Or if you guys ever come to Arizona, we have a 1 year window where you're quote unquote patients. So those would be some other options.
okay.
So I'll send you a list when we're done of other things to see if they'll run there. And basically, you want the peace of mind of knowing everything's negative. So you're
Yeah.
basically just trying to build more confidence, like, hey, I'm going in the right direction, or at least I'm healthy enough. Now, one thing that you may want to consider, I don't think we ever did a Grail gallery test. I don't know if you remember.
No, no, we're going to do that for Greg, but we never did the gallery.
What that is, that looks at over 50 cancers in the blood. That's a molecular cancer test. So it has kind of two values. One is if, let's just say, you didn't know you had, like, if someone doesn't know they have cancer, that would be the test you would do because the likelihood of it picking up the cancer is pretty high. And it would tell you, hey, there's something going on. And then you could treat it when it's like stage one, where it's basically barely detectable on a PET scan or something. The
Right.
other way that we use it is if someone does have cancer. So let's say someone has got like cancer spread everywhere. I would run that test because it just validates for you, the individual that say does have cancer, that it could find your cancer. And then what you could do is after you have no evidence of cancer on a PET scan, you rerun that test. And now if it shows no cancer, you got really high confidence. Hey, I have molecular data and imaging data showing no evidence of cancer, because then that allows you to shift like what's your focus of your treatment strategy. In other words, if someone has active cancer, they should be putting all their eggs towards treating the cancer. But
Uh,
now let's say the cancer's gone, they want to shift to preventing cancer. And those are slightly different strategies.
right, right.
All right, so then let's talk about, let me find your stuff you put in about the TP53. Let's see what this is. How can I copy it?
Yeah, there were so many different uh, natural, and all in the Latin terms of genestin and, you know,
So what I would say right now is, let me see if it lets me copy the link. Otherwise, I'll just have to search for it manually.
uh-huh.
Here we go. No.
Mm,
In other words, if there's no cancer there, there's nothing to be treated. And what a lot of times what doctors say, well, this is to prevent it from coming back. Well, the reason why cancer comes back is because a poor job is done to find cancer. And then there's no effort made to prevent cancer by testing, environmental toxins, mycotoxins, heavy metals, and eliminating them. And so these strategies here, like the MD, this P53 MDM2, um, okay, so all right, so genistein is a great tool, but it does modulate the estrogen receptor. And
right,
so
right.
it may or may not be a good tool, but before we kind of get into this doesn't take into account the unique chemical environment of your body. So if
Oh,
we let me do this. Let me copy these other links.
yeah, the genistein is so complicated because of especially for hormone positive cancers, and then how the soy works and if it's fermented versus not, and it's a whole other ball game there. So I've just been staying away from soy completely.
Yeah, I think that is probably prudent,
Okay.
but there's I just copied these links because I have to close that window. And so I got those guys up. And
Hmm.
now I can close this. And then let's go to your report. So this is when we did the micronutrient testing.
Yep.
And so even back then, lymphocytes were low,
Yeah, because I was still doing treatments, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So the main thing is that every cell in the body needs every nutrient. So so see what this average line is, and then I'm gonna
Yeah.
make this a little bigger. So you have the average line here, and then there's this other real, it's a little bit faint. So anything in this kind of area down here. So if it's in this red, we say clinically deficient. If
Right.
it's over here, we say low, and over here we say borderline low, and over here we would say op. B6 was low, B12 was low. So what that means is that based on micronutrient levels, you'd be more prone to neuropathy or neurological issues because you're missing certain B vitamins, or at least they're low enough where now the side effects of chemo could be harder on your body, right? So just from the nutrients, without even looking at the form of a drug or something. The other thing is that these nutrients are critical for making breast cancer resistant proteins. So if they're low, so what I'm saying is like the way I would look at first, like what's the main things we should be focusing on based on your blood work. And then in terms of like things to consider, environmental toxins, mycotoxins, heavy metals, where are those levels right now in the body? Because if they're present, so let's say, for example, if BPA is high, you have a chemical that's blasting the cells of the breast and the ovaries and basically any reproductive tissue in your body, and it's causing potentially DNA damage that could lead to cancer. So even if we like hit you with a magic wand and got rid of all cancer cells in your body, if those chemicals are still there, it's just a matter of time where there's enough DNA damage and there's going to be so quote unquote cancer returning or coming back.
Okay.
So the effort should be made on, you know, now once we get someone to the point like you don't have any obvious signs of cancer, and right now you got the one gene test saying, hey, the genes from the tumor we're not seeing in the blood, and you got the CT scan that will get that report at some point. It shows things look good. So you got, an imaging and let's say a blood test that they're aligned to kind of saying the same thing but different methods.
Hmm.
Be a little bit better if you had like a Grail test because then it's looking at things from totally different pathways. But see here, like K1 was low, K2 was low. Vitamin K is critical to fighting cancer. And so, so maybe the effort should be put on really increasing these micronutrients, and then that will help get your lymphocytes back up,
Uh-huh.
and the body could be doing a better job of fighting cancer on its own, which then reduces the likelihood of needing drugs. So that would be, the approach I would use right now, because you want to get those immune cells up and then see like here's glutamine, which is critical for GI function, countering the effects of cortisol, things like that.
Right. We figured maybe during the chemo, the glutamine was depleted because it was, and we didn't want to artificially, because it's an antioxidant, boost it during the chemo. But now we can take a different approach. But I remember you saying you wanted to make sure my body was producing the glutamine rather than just supplementing.
I think, okay, you're confusing a glutamine versus a glutathione.
Glutathione.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There
So
you
you kind of had the two things combined. So that
okay.
one of the concerns with glutamine is if you have active cancer present, cancer cells could take glutamine and convert it to glucose. Right.
Uh-huh. Yes.
That's why we want to be cautious of the glutamine when there's cancer present. And then cancer cells could take glutathione and become resistant to chemo. So they're kind of like sort of two different things, but the same outcome, if you will.
Got
And
it.
once there is no evidence of cancer, then the goal is a little different because you need glutamine for your digestive tract, you need glutamine for your immune system. Like one of the reasons why maybe the lymphocytes are low is the glutamine is low. And so that's, then one of the reasons why glutathione is critical is it prevents DNA damage. So
Okay. Okay.
now that we, as we start to see like, okay, there's no evidence of cancer, then that's the time, we focus on trying to increase these things. Now, there's a brand new mushroom extract. It's called, oh goodness, I can't quite pronounce this. So ergo thiamine. And let's just see what research they have. So we literally just got this like maybe a week ago. Um, and see here, they're investigating its anti-cancer properties. This is a 2022 paper, so it's still pretty new. This was in a colon cancer. Um, so potential benefit of this dietary thione in the prevention of colorectal carcinoma. So what's really interesting about some of these compounds is they basically can cause oxidative stress in cancer cells, which helps kill the cancer cell. But in healthy cells, they actually improve antioxidant defense mechanisms.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's like good for the good guys and bad for the
Yeah,
bad guys, you know?
exactly.
And what I like about this is it's pretty inexpensive compared to other strategies, and it elevates glutathione significantly.
Oh,
So, in other words, it's like a 3-for-1 special. So you could take three different pills, or you could take the one pill, right? And then save money. So these are some of the strategies. And so, like as an example, if let's just say I had to do a seminar or a lecture to a diverse group of people, and I don't know anyone's background, I don't know their age, their gender, ethnicity, where they live on the planet, what health issues they're dealing with. There's probably 3 or 4 substances I'd probably say everyone should take. One is urolithin A. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
no.
Uh, so basically, where the data is now, you look at how come some people eat fruits and vegetables, never get any disease? Other people eat fruits and vegetables and they still get lots of disease. And the big thing is, well, the genetics, then it's their microbiome, and then are they eating the foods? So in some cases, if you're unavailable to that, like if you can't get pomegranates where you are, you may not have a dietary source of allantoins. And so what they've now done is they said, okay, what if so the allantoins are converted by microbiome organisms into urolithins. What if we just give, first was animals, now it's people, urolithins, and what you see is you get all the benefits. So you could now say, all right, if I take urolithin A, I got protection for every cell in my body, from my brain down to my toenails. So that's a big win. So that reduces risk for all disease, not just cancer. And it also can treat cancer if it's there. So I have urolithin A. We have this new guy here called L-ergothioneine. And then we have something called polydatin, which is kind of like a metabolite of resveratrol. And then we have a new krill oil. And so the krill oil basically gets bigger improvements in EPA, DHA, and DPA with a lower dose. And it actually can add muscle and reduce fat in people with different diseases. So what I'm saying now is if we got those 4 guys at adequate dosing, that could eliminate the need for a lot of other substances. And so like beta glucans and mushroom extracts and turkey tail and all this kind of stuff, because the problem with a mushroom extract is, well, what is it standardized for? And then is that what you need at this moment in time right now? Right. So
Right.
it's like, like if the car needs gas, and mechanic says, "Hey, I put oil in the car," that's not really satisfying the need at that moment, right? It needed gas, not oil.
Yeah.
Or so what we're talking about now is there's these, let's say, newer supplement strategies, and then outside of those 4, the newer probiotics are absolutely amazing. We have probiotics now. Like if someone has diabetes, we could treat that with a probiotic supplement. Someone has Parkinson's, we could treat that with a probiotic supplement. There's some newer probiotics now that are getting attention for treating cancer because they influence the microbiome and help get rid of the types of organisms that lead to cancer. So they're not directly treating, like they're not killing the cancer cell. What they're
Right.
doing is getting rid of the bad guys that make cancer cells.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So these would be things to, consider in terms of a supplement strategy. And then let's just let's just put so L-ergothioneine, let's put in TP53 and see like, and if it even has let's see here. Not sure if this has what we're looking for.
Mhm.
I think this is being picked up. Hmm, let me try it again. See something.
While you're looking, I just have to run to the restroom.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, do you wanna?
No.
Oh, okay. Greg was just found an article, which mushrooms can, oh, never mind.
So I don't see anything specifically talking about how I was just looking to see so a lot of these newer substances, let's try this one. Um, they have cytoprotective effects and here we go. No, so oh shit pulls it up, but it's not pulling up here. Um, so it looks like urolithin definitely has some interaction with TP53. Just it's pulling it up from the full paper, but when you click on the link, it's just the abstract, so you can't read the entire thing. So what I was getting at is, oh, here we go. If this does it. Okay, so see here, now this is prostate cancer cells, but it would apply to breast cancer cells.
Right.
P53 is a tumor suppressor that lost its activity through MDM2 activation in about half cancers. So it's looking to see if urolithin A, how it affects this. And so basically, the influence of urolithin A on a P53 MDM2 pathway may partly contribute to its anti-cancer effect. So what I'm saying is, like in terms of like, think of it as like the best return on your investment of funds,
Right, right.
substances that can fight cancer and keep you from getting cancer and still protect like your brain and your kidneys and your liver, et cetera, your bones, your cartilage. And so, that's what I'm saying is a lot of these newer substances appear to do that. So in other words, think of it as you could eat pomegranates or walnuts or raspberries, and those are good foods to eat.
Yeah,
But you're relying on the fact that you have the genetics and the microbiome to convert those substances into the active forms. And you might or you might not. That's the thing we don't know at this point for each person. Like,
right.
can they make the necessary conversions? So the simple approach right now would be until we have the ability to test each person and know what they can or can't do, you eat the foods, but then you supplement with these things that provide the direct benefits for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that gets back here. And then at some point, I would definitely recommend doing things like the environmental toxins, mycotoxins, heavy metals,
Yeah.
because as long as if any of that's there. Now, what you could do, like if you're, trying to control expenses, maybe you do it on Greg now, and then the assumption would be, well, if you both eat, let's say eat together, you spend a lot of time together, then chances are, if one of you has it, the other has it, because it'd be in the same water or food that was being ingested. And
Hmm.
then, and then you just leverage that, like we're both going to take, follow the strategy to get rid of junk, if you will. Now, where the differences would be, so let's just say on the mycotoxin side, you have a household, and it doesn't matter how many people there are, but say two or more people, they ingest something that has aflatoxin. And for most people, it's usually some type of nut or legume product. So like peanuts or walnuts or pistachios or pecans. As our body breaks down the aflatoxin, it goes from like a B1 to a B2 to a G to an M1 to an M2. In other words, so from person to person, one person may be higher in a different form of aflatoxin than the others, but basically that just tells you everybody was exposed to it, but the individual differences in the genetics and microbiome that results in different metabolites of aflatoxin being higher or lower in each person. But it just kind of, you would just see like, so let's say M1 might be higher in Greg and B1 might be higher in you. What that means is you were both exposed to aflatoxin, just how your body's handling it is a little differently.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm very interested in doing. So if the body is, high in BPA, for example, are there special detox protocols to pull them out outside of like the traditional bentonite clay, charcoal, whatnot?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I would look at, so first, so kind of keep in mind, so let me see, can you, if I pull up this Vibrant Wellness, can you see, let me pull it up first. Whoops.
I know now we're going down another hole, rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's see, here we go. So heavy metals would be one, and these are the symptoms that a lot of times people will show up with. And then the other was mycotoxins. And I wanted to just show you like a sample report. The main thing is it tells you in a summary like what's high, but it's a lot of different chemicals. And now these are all naturally occurring chemicals. But the main thing is whichever, like, so if someone's exposed to aflatoxin, these will be the metabolites. And it tells you these are known human carcinogens. So my main point is we got to first find out which specific chemical someone has. In some cases, the strategy could literally be maybe get a sauna suit, or if you're doing hot yoga, that'd be one option. But you want to just make sure you're sweating. The thing about the hot yoga that you have to be careful of is you do not want your brain to get hot. You need your brain cool and normal while the rest of you gets hot because we lose heat through our head. So if we're keeping heat around the head, you're influencing the way that our body normally regulates, normal thermoregulation. And while you might get sweaty, um, what we want to try to do is, like, I guess, have things come out in a way that doesn't increase the likelihood of heat stroke or heat exhaustion. So if you look at the design of chambers, usually it's like your head's outside the chamber while it heats
Yeah.
the rest of you, kind of thing.
I was just looking at an infrared sauna that yeah, exactly that. You zip it up and you sweat. And we were talking about investing in that.
Yeah. So well, so you have some options though. So let's say like so the one challenge, like say you buy something, is technology is always advancing. So like in a year or two, there's going to be something bigger and better. Then a year or two,
Yeah.
something bigger and better, and you're stuck on that train of okay, I'm dropping money every few years just to get the same thing, but it's better. A
Right.
simple approach might be get a $20 to $30 sauna suit from Amazon. So think of it, remember the years ago, like the wrestlers, the
I've
garbage bag?
seen the sleeping bag ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically though, well, these are basically suits to exercise in.
Oh, though, yeah, the rubber suit. Yes.
Well, we've got
Okay.
wetsuits here.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah,
have,
'cause-
we have neoprene wetsuits.
I would never wear a wetsuit in a hot yoga.
I'm not talking about.
Right. But for exercise, yeah.
so the thing, well, so keep in mind, these are, they're kind of, I don't even know what material, but I would say it feels more plasticky than it does rubber,
Yes.
you know, and almost like a plastic bag versus like a neoprene sleeve. And they have elastic like cinch bands around the wrist and the ankle,
Yeah.
right? And then the neck. And so you're gonna sweat and you want to lose 1 or 2% of your body mass. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you're looking to lose 1 or 2 pounds.
Uh-huh.
You just keep in mind, um, so it's basically you're gonna sweat out the junk, but it's gonna be a lot of water, like 1 or 2 pounds of water, like
Yeah.
as you walk, it's dripping everywhere. So part of your strategy is for most people, I would say like have towels on the ground and get the water so it's not staining your carpet or whatever. And then you usually take it off in a shower stall or somewhere where as it drains, it's not making a big mess. Some people just wash it down while they're in the shower, but you want to kind of sweat it out and then shower fairly quickly because otherwise you reabsorb it back in.
Right.
And
Right.
that strategy, it works for the vast majority of substances. And then you're going to replace it by drinking distilled water or filtered water.
Okay.
Now, what can happen is if you have a lot of junk in your body, first couple of times you do this, you may feel like loopy, you might feel overly rocked, you might feel unusually tired. And that's because you're getting it out of. So the limitation with like a sauna, if you're just sitting there, is it gets rid of what's already in the blood, but stuff that's in the fat still stays there. When you exercise, you increase hormones, then you increase the enzymes, and it debinds the chemicals from the fat. So that's why exercise is so critical. And in a perfect world, everybody's doing this, basically maybe 30 minutes or longer each day. But if you press for time, like 10 or 15 minutes is better than nothing.
So question, because obviously Greg and I, we do our hot yoga.
Okay.
So there's a lot of sweating there. But if we got these suits and did it while we were biking on the exercise with oxygen,
Absolutely. Yeah.
2 for 1.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So I could tell you it's very synergistic. So I'll show you right now. We have a lot of cool studies underway. One is, can you see if I load up my spreadsheet? Tell me if you could see this or not.
I see your
You see,
cursor.
do you see anything, an Excel file or no?
No, I'm still on the sample
Okay, hold on.
sheet.
Let me see where. Okay, let me go back here. Okay. I love this. Okay. Okay, so now here
I
we
do want to
go.
make sure we save just a couple minutes to cover what Greg should be doing right now. Yeah, okay.
So I want you to see is so we keep track of every chemical that we measure, and then it's so red and yellow is color coded, so like what's high and low and all that. But
Uh-huh.
then we have subcomponents for each area, and we have a total level. So my main point is I've done this with a large number of people. We've now validated in 3 to 6 weeks of exercise with oxygen while wearing a sauna suit. Look
Uh,
at the difference. He went from 3837 to 1663, more than half a
okay.
reduction in roughly 3 to 6 weeks. So, and the thing is, no supplements were needed, no yoga classes. In other words, they didn't have to go outside
Uh-huh.
doing all of this from within the house. So, if you do that, That's the fastest way. There is no supplement that will get stuff out of your body faster than exercise with oxygen with a sauna suit. Now,
Excellent.
now what happens though is we have some athletes that they're super fit. The healthier and more fit you become, the more you sweat when you exercise. So for those guys, a sauna suit wouldn't be necessary because they're dropping 10 pounds of water anyway. So we're not looking to like push them over the cliff, so to speak. But
Yeah.
for I usually find most people with cancer, we first evaluate them physically. What I usually see is they don't sweat enough. So their sweat rate is less or lower than, let's say, what I would expect given other variables. So I just wanted you to see that we've literally quantified this now, and then we're going to have this, and then we'll be able to figure out relationships with different cancers and so forth.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so,
Excellent.
so anyway, there's these would be examples of the tests that would tell you things specifically, and then what could be done.
Okay.
So, what I could do is put together a supplement strategy for you that looks at these newer things.
Yeah,
And
the post-cancer strategy, getting
because
up
it
to,
still work to fight cancer if it was there anyway, but then it prevents you from getting cancer. Let's say if there is no cancer and you are exposed to chemicals, you
yeah.
want to have protection against it.
So this because right now, as you know, my choice is they're telling me to take Verzenio, which will lower my blood count and give me diarrhea and all this. It's a cancer inhibitor, but very toxic. And my sense is just taking that drug by doing supplementing my glutathione and actually getting my body as everything we've discussed, that would pretty much eliminate the need for that drug at this time. Would you concur?
Yeah, I would. And what I would do is like you could so right now you don't have the protein antigens they did not show any evidence of cancer. You could literally do some I'll send you a list of some blood tests to do. And if they're all negative, let's say, and if the environment is all, let's say, negative for cancer, then I don't see how doing the drug will benefit you in any way. I think at that point, in the context of, there's no evidence of cancer, I think it's suppressing your immune system.
Yeah.
And what I see is I see lots of patients that don't have cancer that did a drug, then their immune system gets wiped out and they get the cancer anyway, because what happens is the cancer cells that grow when you're on that drug, they're resistant to the drug. And now it becomes harder to kill them when you go to new drugs later on.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then, so that's that drug. Now, the other thing is because I'm hormone positive, postmenopausal, they want to start the aromatase inhibitor, which basically then we're talking bone density and eliminating all estrogen.
So here's what I would say. The reason why those strategies tend not to be as effective as they could in theory,
uh-huh,
taking an aromatase inhibitor, it blocks you from making estrogen.
right.
But what it doesn't do is it doesn't affect, well, if you have BPA in your body, if you have other endocrine inhibitors, they're still blasting cancer cells or blasting DNA to make cancer. So
Yeah.
aromatase inhibitor, it's not, going to cover those areas. And then it doesn't address anything like in your microbiome, if you have bacteria that upregulate beta glucuronidase, it's going to influence your estrogen levels anyway, independent of the aromatase inhibitor. So those, a lot of the standard care protocols, the research is done to validate use of the drug. The research is not done to say what's the optimal biological approach. Those are totally different research objectives. And if we said, what's the optimal biological approach? It's crystal clear. First, let's remove the threats that cause cancer. Second, let's figure out why your immune system couldn't kill the cancer cells on its own. If you figure those two things out for each person, they have no cancer because their immune system, the biggest increases we have seen in the cell lines that fight cancer in real humans is from exercise with oxygen therapy. There's no drug that increases those cells as much as the exercise does. So that alone, every single person should be doing, EWAT, just one to prevent cancer, two to treat cancer. Now, it may take time to get there, let's say if someone's got widespread disease, but they're very effective strategies. So, I think so right now, what's happening is oncologists are using fear of as the basis to do medications, as opposed to saying what's actually going on in this individual. And they'll cite statistics on other people. And when I'm present, I usually say, okay, that's extrapolation. That is not research. Research says, number one, direct observation, which means I study you. The only person that matters is you, no one else. And if I study you, what is going on in your body? And then based on what's going on in your body, then we say, what does research say is the best thing to do? So in order to know what's going on in your body, then they should be looking at the environmental chemicals and the enzymes and the bacteria in your gut, and that influence, the likelihood of breast cancer, other cancers, and then plan the treatment approaches from that. But, that's not done because of time and standard of care approaches.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. One size fits all. And yeah, that makes me feel comfortable. My instinct, and as you know, I was convinced that chemo, radiation, and surgery were the most effective ways to stop and get rid of the cancer. But my body and my mind has been resisting the pills, and because it just didn't make sense. And I think this strategy, getting the toxins test, and very specifically now going after my vitamin B, glutathione, all of the areas where I'm low, to build that immune system. And also the past 2 months I've had a cold, which I never get.
Yeah.
And I'm reacting to allergies or whatever it is. So this makes sense.
Yeah. Plus, I guess the other thing would be this. So if the drugs, let's say if those approaches work, and let's say, God forbid, something happens and you do have evidence of cancer, well, then they would probably put you on those drugs anyway. And then you would see right away, like if they're working or not working. And what I usually see is those approaches don't work on their own because they're too unidimensional. So, like, if we go back, remember the KEGG pathway. Did it change the screen or did it?
Yeah,
Is it still?
I'm on Google search now.
Sure. So this is basically the known cancer pathways in humans. So it just basically looks like an electronic schematic or circuit.
Yeah.
So there's roughly, this isn't theoretically complete. Think of as 100,000 pathways. So when they say the cure for cancer, that's a joke. It's impossible because it doesn't fit with how we know cancer works. So, and this would be for like whether it's a breast cancer, a prostate cancer, whatever cancer, there's probably 100,000 variations. In other words, figure 22,000 genes that each of us have roughly, and there could be various mutations. So that's how we're coming up with the 100,000 possibilities.
Yeah.
So,
One cure.
yeah, right. So if you took one drug, maybe that blocks one pathway. What about all the other pathways? And a good analogy that like if you come into a house that's infested with cockroaches as soon as you turn on the light and the roaches scurry, they're looking for places to run and hide. If you block one hole, they run to another hole, right? They're not going to where it's blocked. Well, when you
Yeah.
block the cancer pathway, it has an innate desire to survive. So somehow it starts mutating down a different pathway. And that's what makes it kind of challenging. And so a lot of times when a treatment is initially started, it gets rid of the weaker cancer cells that can't adapt. And then you're left with the stronger cancer cells. And that's why a lot of times things look good at the beginning. But we know
Yeah.
about chemotherapeutic approaches is ultimately they fail because they're not changing while the cancer is changing. And
Right.
so the reason like doing a Tempest and doing the economics is you're trying to say, okay, what based on what science says we can measure right now, what pathways do I need to pay attention to consider? Now, keep in mind, remember the Tempest showed a TP53 and the other two pathways. The the medications that you were treated with previously, they don't address those pathways.
Exactly.
So, so that means, yeah, they may have worked in some regards because there could be other vulnerabilities in the cancer cell, but that's not as precise. What you want to know is, hey, this drug will, it'll obliterate any cancer cell with this TP53 mutation. Instead, it's working maybe through mechanisms not clearly known, and so there's a lot of ambiguity of how successful that could be long term.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to focus on the ergothioneine and urolithinine and those supplements that can support my P53 and then address my vitamin deficiencies and test for the micronutrients in the meantime, or the microtoxins. And in the meantime, get my sauna suit and just whatever toxins are in my body, because of course they are, with my hot yoga, EWAT, and the sauna suit to really get it out.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
How often do you do hot yoga?
I do hot yoga at least like 4 times a week.
And it's an hour and 110 degrees.
Hour and a half. I sweat. Both Greg and I are huge sweaters. Yeah. So we're really good on the sweat side.
We could knit a sweater.
We could knit a sweater. We sweat so much. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. Shall we turn it over to Greg?
Yep. Sounds fantastic.
Come on over, honey.
Okay.
So of course I'm going to speak for him, but for just a moment, but he's going to come in. We're very early on this process. From the biopsy of his palatine tonsil.
Oh, we have the report here.
And we have he has and a deep cervical
Thank you.
spine. I'm just the ENT feels it's squamous cell carcinoma. My question is, with tonsil cancer, they didn't test for HPV, and this was my question. So it looks like HPV from my frame of reference. HPV can also affect the P53. Now, if he has HPV, and of course I'm surmising, I probably have HPV, wouldn't I? And would that affect my P53? And should I get tested again? All my PAPs are fine, but am I ahead of the horse here, or I'm just throwing that out because it's in my brain?
Sure. I think you're just a little ahead. Let me just
As I often do.
all right. So first, you have to look at the type of test that's done. And so let's just assume that a tissue biopsy is collected and that biopsy is sent to a lab. All they could say is whether HPV was present in that tissue sample, right? There's no test that looks at HPV in every cell in the body, right, to see what's going on. So it's possible that HPV could be there, but it just got, the wrong cross section. So like if if I go over here to, this is, oh, if I type in tumor heterogeneity, this is, let's see, Sloan Kettering usually has, there we go. So this is from 2014, right? And this was already, is this showing up on your end?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we've
This-
looked at this with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this model is designed to be gumballs and cancer, but it really could be for HPV as well. So there's probably about 58 or 60 versions of HPV. So one issue would be what type of genetic test was done. In other words, if I'm testing for HPV 16, 18, and someone has 34, right? It's not that they don't have HPV. I just tested for the wrong thing. So when we do HPV testing, we typically do it in a saliva sample because it tends to pick it up no matter where it is in the body. I don't need to have a tissue biopsy. And then if it comes back, now HPV is treatable. You don't need the Gardasil vaccine or anything like that. We've got numerous patients that had HPV. After we treated it, we never had, like years later, there is no evidence they ever test positive again. And so what can happen in some people, they can get HPV infected, and in 2 to 3 years, assuming there's not a new infection, then like from a different partner, let's say different form of HPV, their immune system might get rid of it. Other people, they tend not to have that ability to fight it because maybe they're low in antioxidants, or they're missing something for their immune cells to do what they need to do. When you look at the literature says a lot of different things because it's just testing people and then trying to explain what happened as opposed to looking at how to fix those people over time and then see what happened. And so what I'm saying is, like, it could be different forms of HPV is one, but also let's say HPV was the green guys only. And if I do a biopsy sample, and I'm only getting, I cut it this way, I'm only getting yellow. I don't see the red and the green at all. And so what I would do is I would say, okay, we could do a saliva test for HPV on Greg, but what I would recommend probably is, let me show you this here. This is oral DNA.
And again, I'm jumping the gun because we don't even know
Yeah.
if they haven't even tested or like we're in the beginning stages.
Sure. Okay. So this is a lab that specializes in saliva testing. And this first one, this is a test for bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why this is important, it identifies all these different organisms. And then on the actual sample report, it tells you if the bacteria you have cause cancer.
Right. Okay.
And then if that, so obviously then if it was positive, now because this lab, they're usually evaluated by the FDA, they're going to recommend antibiotics as the treatment for the pathogens. There's so many options you have. There's mouthwashes, there's other things. There's ozones, gums, and syringes you could just inject yourself. So there's different strategies. But the main point is these types of bacteria, they're known to cause cancer. So that's why you want to get the test done and get rid of them. They also, let's see here. They also do HPV and go backwards here.
Okay.
And they do something else called Candida.
Yeah,
So-
which is an issue for me. So we'll talk about all this. Do you want to get a baseline on me and kind of let you know where I've been, what I've been doing?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So first, what made you go to the doctor, I guess, first? Like what was going on that made you say I better get
I can upload a timeline for you. This all started basically, so the three sort of initiators were January 5th, 6th of 2022, I got Omicron. Like somebody at the gym sneezed on me, and I finally got Omicron. Okay, so no, didn't do the shots, didn't think that any of that stuff made sense. So finally got Omicron. Those 2 days, fever, chills, wiped out, but I mean, going through it. About a week and a half later, we went to Hawaii. I came back, and it felt like a relapse of COVID because I was afraid to go to sleep at night because I thought I would stop breathing. Went to the ER. They said it was actually a second virus. It wasn't COVID, but it was a second virus. So we're talking January 2022. Okay, so over a year ago, right? And they said basically it was a virus that was on the island. Ironically, there was a golf tournament, and I found out later that a bunch of professional golfers had got knocked out of the tournament. Okay, and then a few weeks after that, I got thrush. Right, so Candida overgrowth. Somebody pointed out that it's probably from the albuterol inhaler that they gave me for the second viral situation that I had. So that was that. I treated the thrush with Listerine because what else can you do, kind of thing. In April of 2022, I noticed I was in bed and I was waking up. I had my head turned to my right, and when I swallowed, I felt a catch, like a tendon was out of line or something like that. So that was probably April or so. Finally got a visit with the doctor. By that point, 2 lymph nodes over here were feeling a little bit big, but more importantly, my ear was itchy. Like I want to take a pipe cleaner and just, normally I just go this way, but I wanted to go this way down the Eustachian tube, right? So, and the PA was basically saying, it's probably just like an inner ear infection. So they gave me some amoxicillin, and away we go. Nothing happened. At this point, this is when Wendy's being diagnosed. So my focus is on her for obvious reasons. And this is sort of a side thing that's going on. By July, I talked to the doctor or the PA, and when they prescribe the amoxicillin, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're getting this all the time. Enlarged lymph nodes common after COVID." So everybody's kind of like, no big deal. In October, I got an ultrasound, and I'm trying to get back in. We'll be able to upload this stuff too. October ultrasound, 2 enlarged lymph nodes, level 5 and a little bit forward, but they're benign appearing, is what they say. December. The back of my throat starts hurting. It's like Christmas night, basically. Back of the throat is hurting, like a tonsil, but more like a pressure on it. So that's when things really started going on, was in December. It's diffuse. It's hard to find the exact location. Sometimes it's the Eustachian tube. Sometimes it's below the mastoid, the SCM mastoid insertion, the root of the tongue. It's just kind of moving around. I noted that there were some papillae, some bumps, like around the Eustachian tube, a hole, and at the root of the tongue. So that was kind of where I was with all this. I am one of the things I started doing was fasting at that point. We were kind of on that mode anyways. I've been fasting since 2000. I mean, I started doing it then. So in January, basically, I thought a good way to clean out my body was to go ahead and fast. So I did about 18 days of fasting in January. Okay. Maximum was 88 hours of a fast. And then what they say is any idiot can fast, but it takes a wise man to break the fast. So I'm pretty good about getting back into it. In January, we started doing hot yoga again. In February is when the MRI came up and showed, and I just uploaded this onto the patient portal. So basically you can read left tonsillar mass 2.5 by 2.7. So that's an inch by an inch, infiltrating left tongue base. Mass also infiltrates left parapharyngeal, submandibular, and carotid spaces. Ill-defined lymphoid, but it's all on this side of my face. Okay, it's all on the cell phone side of my body. Okay, it's all going on here. So once I get the MRI back, I start doing EWAT 3 by 30 minutes a day, doing multi-step. Okay, so getting a sweat, but doing basically 3 by 30, because that's how much air, the bag holds, right? So doing 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 2 minutes steady state, 1 minute, the 30 seconds of low of hypoxic, the exhaust air, and 30 seconds of the 100%, and then 2 minutes. So I'm doing interval training like that, 30, 27, 24, 21. Boom. So I do 3 sets a day. I also go to the gym and start doing circuits, and the goal is 3 by 30. It doesn't really happen. I mean, it happens a lot, but not that much. I don't do any fasting days. My weight stays stable. I'm down to about 209, around there. In March of 2023, March 20th, I started working with oregano oil and GSC, just because my tongue, I mean, I've always had sort of like I have a tongue scraper, because all my life I've had a lot of sort of just gack on the tongue. So basically I started doing GSC, grapefruit seed extract, and oregano oil, basically to kind of eliminate the candida from my body, because it seems like it's worked pretty well, among other things. The discomfort and the location, the size of lump would vary. It might be just interstitial fluid. In other words, go do 90 minutes of hot yoga, sweat your shirt, completely wet, and sweat everything wet. So I would lose probably 2% easy in a yoga class. So sweat it out. This would change size. I could feel different things with it. So anyways, end of March, there starts to be discomfort in the base of the jaw hinge. In other words, I could feel like a sharp pain. So other nerves are being affected by this growth, what's going on there. So what I ended up doing was, and I never take meds. So I iced it, and then finally I started taking ibuprofen a little bit. But no weight loss, no real night sweats or anything like that. So very sort of localized, and we would say starting in December is when this really started, inside the mouth being an issue. The result of the ultrasound, the result of the MRI from February led to finally getting a biopsy. It's a total mishigash with the biopsy, but I finally got it done February, 3 weeks ago, basically. And the results came back inconclusive. They did in the level 5, which was from their point of view, an easier way to get in. So they did 5 taps into the level 5 lymph node. And in the ultrasound, it showed a mass, basically a big mass across here, or like a web. So 2 masses, but a web interconnecting across there. The results of the fine needle aspirate biopsy was that there was suspicious but not conclusive. Therefore, on Wednesday, we did a tonsillar. So the surgery is, they started with tonsillectomy. So I showed them where it was. It was the left palatine tonsil, the root of the tongue. There was some feeling of stuff. And at the jaw hinge, where there's some skin at the jaw hinge, that was feeling a little bit like there was something there. So they started there, and then he decided to go into the lymph node. So he made an incision down below, I guess, and one up inside, and grabbed some of that. So we don't have the final yet, but the initial is the ENT's feeling was that it's a squamous cell carcinoma initiated in the tumor, or in the tonsil, tumor initiated in the tonsil, that then started spreading across. Now, so that's where we are. In terms of one thing that I wanted to talk about, and just put in the notes, is I work with RF Energy. One of my businesses is we talked about the plasma light, and remember we talked about Rife machines a while ago, and that one of the research teams that I work with on the plasma light is now doing basically RF energy for brain tumors. But the bottom line is, it turns out that I've been sitting downstairs, the Wi-Fi at my office desk where I've been sitting for the last 3 years, the Wi-Fi is directly underneath the desk, 2 feet away from me on this side of my body. Number one. Number two, we have a 5G tower that I just found out about that's 40 feet from the house. And the readings, they vary, but we've got readings of up to, I've been peaking, like a peak on the reader would be, if enough cars are going by and connecting with the cell phone tower, are up to like close to 8 watts, not 8 milliwatts, 8 watts per square meter, which is a shit ton of RF, basically like a microwave. Now it's at the front of the house. It doesn't necessarily affect us in the back, but I mean, if we're up there, it's a lot of energy being thrown around in our neighborhood. So one of the things I have to do is try to get Verizon to maybe shield the house, or at least make their tower a little more directional. But so that's, in terms of environmental, that's one of the things we're dealing with here. So it turns out, anyways. So so in addition to doing the EWAT, I've been doing kind of just gleaning off of Wendy's protocol, vitamin C, turmeric, 3 times a day, kind of 1,000 milligram doses with the C, vitamin D, SCAC T, just because why not throw everything at it? We've got a Rife machine. I'll go ahead and put it on every once in a while, or be in a Rife area. But I mean, I understand those are not necessarily, I'm just like, let's throw everything at it. We're going to go at it all the way. So just whatever's been available, I've been working with. So, and then yoga at least a couple times a week since January. And that's a full, like, wring out your shirt into a bucket kind of sweat, not a light glow. When I do the EWAT, because it's only 30 minutes, I have been getting a sweat, but not like a dripping sweat. So so that's where we are. I'm feeling, I'm back in like triathlon shape is what it feels like. I mean, I'm pretty good with that. Physically, I am a high metabolizer. It's my sort of instinct. I mean, I have if I drink alcohol, it metabolizes pretty fast. If things go through my system pretty quickly. So anyways, that's all I have to say, and I just want to give you a baseline.
Okay. All right. So, thank you for sharing that information. I guess I'd like to see let me see what I have so far here. So it would be helpful to get like whatever reports, final reports, only because one, if we're gonna, let's say if we're gonna do any of the testing through Tempus Onconomics, we want to make sure we could use the samples at a lab that were positive. In other words, that there's something more conclusive.
Right.
Otherwise, you run the risk. If, let's just say, based on sampling, the biopsy sample has no evidence of cancer and there's nothing that could be used to measure, then it'd just be a waste of time, and then you're not going to get anything that's actionable from that. So when you get a chance, any reports, the labs, etc., upload those. In terms of energy exposure, let's say it's Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi definitely increases oxidative stress. What's really surprising to me is years ago, the military used Wi-Fi signals as a weapon against hostile, groups. Really blast like the hostile territory with Wi-Fi. And today the FCC says, "Oh yeah, that's safe." And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a huge disconnection. Now, argument could be made that different environment and other factors, and people had different diets, so they didn't have the protection. So you could explain some of that. So one of the things, like, I dealt with this in my own house. Like, on the one hand, I'm logged in to computers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I'm basically a willing participant to being blasted by all sources of electromagnetic radiation.
Mhm.
So what the way we would counter that is you could use basically pulse electromagnetic field energy. You
Mhm.
could
Good
use
method.
to kind of counter those, like the side effects from all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And it only takes 15 to 30 minutes of treatment time. And at least as far as the cellular data goes, you could basically make corrections to all the different. So if we looked at blood cells under, let's say, a negative electrical energy and see what happens, it only takes 15, 30 minutes of treatment of healthy PEMF to basically
Mhm.
correct all that. As far as the oxidative stress, that's probably the bigger concern because oxidative stress is basically the way that DNA gets damaged that leads to cancer. So maybe one thing would be to look at repositioning the Wi-Fi router that's under your desk, that kind of thing.
I just turned it off,
Yeah,
basically. It was
yeah.
like, once I knew what it was like, okay. Yeah, once I got a reading on it, it was like I just turned it off and everything's hardwired. So, yeah,
So
yeah.
then that takes care of that.
Mhm.
Um, where this is where I think micronutrient
Mhm.
testing for the stuff I mentioned earlier, like the HPV, the bacteria, only because there's a high likelihood they could be contributing to what's called head neck cancer, whether it's on the tongue or some other part of your head.
Mhm.
And then maybe environmental toxins, mycotoxins, heavy metals, because there's probably, one or more of those areas something's going to show up in. That's all areas that are traditionally ignored by, standard care medicine. Now, where things like, so let's say you're doing, your vitamin C and your turmeric and your SCT, those are great tools. But if you're low in, let's say, vitamin K1 and you
Mhm.
don't know you're low in K1, there's no way to address something you don't know. And
Right.
so the benefits of the other things you're doing, they're not going to be as, let's say you get 10% of return as opposed to a full 100%,
Mhm.
because, you're limited by whatever's most rate limiting, and
Right. Right.
part of what we want to do with everyone is identify what's most rate limiting. And that's just basically stuff you need that you can't, compensate for,
Mhm.
or you shouldn't have to compensate for, and then identify the biggest threats. And
Mhm.
that's the chemicals and the pathogen stuff comes in. If that stuff's figured out, it could dramatically change. Now, what
Right.
uh, I told your wife before is that on the for squamous cells, we developed a protocol, golly, almost 20 years ago now,
Mhm.
and it's worked really well. I have different centers around the world using it. It's basically we just call it the hyperox protocol. It's basically hyperoxidative stress,
Okay.
just a form of vitamin C. It's two forms of vitamin C combined with metadione and a few other substances. And it works really well to knock out squamous cell cancers.
Mhm.
Is it the same protocol I did?
Let me see.
I did vitamin C, metadione, palmitate, ascorbic acid, and
So
then
so the metadione, the ascorbyl palmitate, and the buffered C, those three components will be the same. There's
Mhm.
a few other components be a little different. Um, One is apigenin, two is if I had all your data, I would be able to
Yeah.
be more precise. But
Right.
we look at things like Tylenol
Mhm.
and some other, let's say, over-the-counter meds and sometimes prescription meds, because what we're trying to do is jack up reactive oxygen species, because the it's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for here? It's kind of like uh, a dichotomy in that oxidative stress is what causes cancer.
Mhm.
You have cancer, you want to increase oxidative stress more.
Mhm.
And the reason is certain cancer cell lines, like the squamous cell cancers, they have a high metabolic rate. And so they need a lot of energy. So if you're blasting them with oxidative stress, they can't simultaneously repair the damage from the oxidative stress and still have enough energy to survive. So
Right.
they burn themselves out faster. And it's not like this happens in, days to weeks. So you're not staying on a strategy long enough to cause healthy cells to become cancer. So that's why it works out pretty good.
Okay. So so I need baseline blood tests, right? So we can do an analysis. So what tests should I be getting? What would be the first thing you would recommend?
So that would be the micronutrients, the
Okay.
environmental toxins, the heavy metals, the mycotoxins, and the oral. I'll send this to you in a message in a portal, so you don't have to worry about it. It'll
Okay.
be itemed out and with the prices, and you could figure out priorities and stuff.
Okay.
Some it's pretty straightforward. And then you probably want to do that Grail test just to see, like, is there any peripheral markers of cancer?
Mhm.
And then that would give you enough right now on a test that your local docs can order. I'll look up some stuff there. There's basic things like I would always do an ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, CRP, and I'll send you this to the portal as well.
Mm.
Just because the odds are this stuff's going to be negative or normal, but you don't want to be the person that finds out, oh, this was going all this time and no one knew about it, so it
Right.
wasn't. You want to see with your own eyes, like, this is my blood sample and it's, negative or normal, whatever the right, response would be.
Is that the ESR? Is that what I should also request my people to
Yeah.
do on
Yeah,
my?
well, I'll send you both separate messages, like through each kind of portal, and some of the tests are going to be the same, and then some will be a little different.
Mhm. Okay.
When you're working with your clients with this particular cancer, all of these tests and supplement, is it kind of the same? Are we still expecting to do if this is what they recommend, the chemo and radiation and all of this supports it?
So what I would right now, I don't have enough information.
You don't know anything.
specifics
Of course.
cancer, but let's just say this. So let's just say hypothetically, it was an HPV 16/18 type of cancer.
Right.
Mhm.
That's a very difficult cancer to treat. So just in that case, you'd want to throw like the kitchen sink at it because it is difficult. But on the other hand, if it's, let's say, like a stage 1 or 2 where there's no evidence it's metastasized, there's actually over-the-counter stuff that treats it very well.
Mhm.
So
I think it's pretty much metastasized because we're up to,
Mhm.
in the tumor,
Yeah.
in the lymph node, it is between 3 by 4 centimeters, and it is called a metastasis in the lymph node. So,
Yeah. So then, we'd want to get a little bit more precise information
yeah,
to look at treatment options. And that's where, so what we kind of want is a biopsy with a positive finding that's conclusive.
Mhm.
And then we want to be able to have Tempus and Oconomics test that sample. In other words, on the pathologist will say the block that's got the positive info,
Right.
and then we would request testing that specific block.
Mhm.
And then Tempus will come back with drugs based on genetic findings, and then Onconomics comes back with drug recommendations based on proteomic findings. So it's two different approaches to looking at how to target the cancer.
Sure.
And then we can always look at natural approaches to treating it.
Okay. Yeah. So we're still waiting on the final conclusive. So as soon as we get that, now what he said, basically they went and they did the tonsil and the mouth, the oral area first, and sent it off quick to the lab, and it wasn't conclusive enough. But he said this was a malignancy. So this is where we'll get the sample from here, I imagine. And once we get the conclusive data, boom, right off to you and away we go. So I'm meeting him on Tuesday, and I guess we can get all that information.
the ENT to get the stitches removed, and then we'll start with, they're putting authorization for oncologist.
So did he ever discuss, so if I owned a hospital and let's say a patient comes in with a mass,
Mhm.
one approach would be to do a biopsy and see what it is and then decide something from there. But if I were sitting down with a medical team and I would say, wait a minute, can we remove that whole mass right now? And then it doesn't matter what it is afterwards if there's no longer a threat to that person.
Mhm.
in certain states, that is considered medically irresponsible, even though it's more logical.
Yeah.
Because the idea is, why remove something if you don't know what it is? But surgeries are done all the time to remove masses that are, they're benign, but they interfere with a function some way, some other way. So the reason what I see happening is the business algorithm of medicine is, kind of get as many pokes into it as possible to get the billing and then remove it, as opposed to let's just remove it right now. And then you have the entire mass to test. So did anyone discuss with you just doing surgery to remove what could be found?
When we, I think the approach, well, basically no. And yeah, would have been my thoughts. I think if we look at the MRIs, when you get the pictures, it's not necessarily an easy area to get into because it's
okay.
It's close to the carotid. So that was part of it,
The ENT's initial thing was, no, this is not surgery. This is chemoradiation to reduce, maybe similar to get it to a smaller mass.
And then do surgery later.
Yeah, maybe. Well, still, we're all TBD with this. So yeah, this guy's,
his initial
stepwise
inclination was not surgery, treatment with the oncology, but again, it's still pretty early.
Yeah. So what I guess so the only thing would be from your perspective, do you feel like it was growing larger rapidly, or do you feel like it was growing larger slowly?
It's this basically has started since it's been 4 months. So I don't know if that's rapid, but yeah, it's been
more rapid than mine.
Yeah. I mean, basically in July, it was minuscule. In November or October with the MRI, it was basically roughly the same size, a little bit smaller. But then, yeah, it feels like it's kind of it's been getting uncomfortable when they did the fine needle biopsy and they were pressing against the mass. I could feel facial nerves in my face being pressed. So it's definitely, there's a lot going on there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm living with it. So I'm living with it. So.
Yeah. So I guess the other thing is, did they just talk about a PET scan at all?
Well, this is we're pre all these stages. It's like they're basically saying, let me finish, Wendy. What he said when I was in post-op, he said it's malignant radiation. So that's what he said to a patient coming out. Then we went to the doctor's office.
Okay, but by the same means, I just have to say, when I spoke to him, he said chemotherapy, radiation. But yes, definitely that I needed a PET CT scan was going to happen. Yeah. That is a definite. Yeah. As I had PET CT, and it's definitely going to be the next thing. Probably we meet the oncologist, he orders the PET CT and goes over the biopsy.
Okay. So the timing of such is that this would be a good time to get, whatever tests, work into your budget. That'd be good to do. Because you keep in mind it's going to take 1 to possibly 4 weeks to get that information back. What I would say, let's just say hypothetically, they do a PET CT, and let's just say the solution at that point is chemo and radiation and possibly surgery later. Mm-hmm. I would have supplements that would complement the chemo and the radiation now. Mm-hmm. And then as other labs come in, then I would say, okay, let's add this other thing or make this other modification. So we know, like, if you're doing radiation, you want to eat more raspberries because there's now the realization that certain foods have what's called radiosensitizers. So certain foods provide substances that make radiation actually work better. It kills cancer more effectively and protects healthy cells at the same time. So it's really simple stuff, yet no radiation oncologist ever tells patients this stuff, even though you just go on PubMed and put food and radiosensitizer, and it just tells you all this stuff right there. It's public domain. Now, there's other things like beta-lactam and some other substances that work really well with radiation. But we just got to look at like the timing of like when the chemo would be versus the radiation,
Mhm.
because it's possible that something that enhances radiation may interfere with chemo. It's also possible that one substance may make both work better. So that's where, like menadione and its two forms of C, they're
Mhm.
usually, I haven't found any chemo that they're not compatible with yet, and they work with radiation. So that's kind of like a good base.
Mhm.
Kind of, in other words, no matter what drug is being thrown at you or what radiation protocol, that stuff usually complements it well.
Mhm.
And with this, it's possible it could be both the chemo radiotherapy. It's very common that they're
Yep.
both happening at the same time. And I will repeat though, the radiologist will say don't have any oxidant. And I know you had said because of the menadione, it cancels out because they said don't even try it, no vitamin C whatsoever, because you're going to work against the radiotherapy.
So
And
that's when that's an old school way of approaching things. There's now lots of studies showing that antioxidants may actually enhance radiation
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, what I see a lot of times is I just had a young man with osteosarcoma, and we were doing curcumin IVs in our clinic. So
Mhm.
he went back to his cancer treatment center where they're doing a chemo IV, and he said, "Can you guys add curcumin IV to my protocol?" And I said, "Well, let us look into this." And they said, "No, we can't do it because of all the side effects of curcumin." And we're like, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like the side effects of chemo? You're not worried about
Yeah.
that, but you're worried
Right.
about curcumin." And then we actually look at the clinical trials. It shows that curcumin counters the side effects of the chemo he was on. And so the way we would look at it is we always go, what are the specific drugs they want to use? And then
Mhm.
we model everything after the specific drug. So we're more like laser focused as opposed to generic. And then if there's something that looks like it might be a contraindication, then we just go with a plan B. We find a better option than the plan A.
Okay, awesome. So basically we're we're running a marathon and I'm training, basically I'm simulating training for the marathon right now, or that's basically where we are. So the testing and the supplements are basically what we're going to do, right? And they might carry in through the race, or they might be modified for something else during the race.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I just wanted, I'll list the things that basically sort of what I'm taking now, but it makes more sense to have your recommendations as to what to take, and we'll just go ahead and order it right away. I mean, if there's anything I can start, ASAP, let's do it, because the EWAT makes sense. I'll get a sweatsuit so that, like you said, it's once he takes the stitches out, I won't have to worry about sweating here, but basically, if I'm not sweating, the other thing I'm doing is controlled breathing. So
Mhm.
like, if I'm in a steady state on an Airdyne doing EWAT, can I get to 4 breaths a minute? Inhale, hold, exhale, inhale, hold. What other sort of things can I do? Just, I'm playing games all the time.
Yeah.
So basically,
So what I would say is this, that all right, on the in terms of EWAT,
Mhm,
the main thing that you want to do is get oxygen into a tumor,
mhm,
uh, because that is what enhances the efficacy of any other treatment, because it allows for oxidative stress to happen locally.
okay,
The way that you get more oxygen into a tissue, though, is by increasing carbon dioxide. So it's a catch 22.
okay.
As you get more fit, you get oxygen to tissue rapidly. And
Mhm,
then your body says, "Oh, I have enough oxygen." So the blood vessels go into that tissue, vasoconstrict. So
mhm.
now, even though you're breathing in oxygen, there could actually be less oxygen getting to where you want it to go.
Right.
The way you kind of compensate that is you got to really drive up carbon dioxide levels, because that's what causes vasodilation of your blood vessels,
Okay.
and it gets everything there. So normally the way that our model in the facility is that we get everyone to where they do 1,000 calories in a workout.
Mhm.
At that point, we only do hyperoxia. We don't do any low oxygen at all on the EWAT. And most of the people I'm seeing, when I say most, like 80%, 90%, they come in barely standing. So they're much lower functioning than where you guys are.
Mhm.
So I don't know where their brain and their heart is in terms of ability to handle physical stress.
Mhm.
So I have to stay high oxygen because there's no way they're going to have a heart attack or a stroke if they have plenty of oxygen coming in.
Right.
We get their fitness level to the point they can hit 1,000 calories. Once they hit 1,000 calories, then we're switching to we're putting what they call Velcro cinch straps. You get them off Amazon, and it's just like a tiny belt with Velcro, where it
Mhm.
goes around your upper arm, like between your bicep and shoulder, and it goes
Mhm.
around upper thigh. And you basically pull it as tight as you can
Mhm.
because it restricts blood flow. And then what you're doing is you're creating hypoxic conditions in the arms and legs.
Okay.
And then what you're doing is you're working out without breathing in the oxygen, just
Okay.
working hard. And now you might go 2 to 10 minutes. Your arms and your legs should feel like they're on fire.
Mhm.
And but they're not turning, they might turn a little purple, but there's no peripheral tingling, like there's no neuropathy issues. And then after you got that, say 10 minutes in where they're looking kind of purplish, then you take off the cinch straps and then you switch to breathing in all the oxygen.
Okay.
And that works really, really well to get a vasodilation effect around the body.
Okay. So, Dr. Tom, we do have the multi-step EWAT. So basically, yeah. So can I? So basically, should I be doing just the low oxygen exhaust from the oxygen machine during this time? I mean, how are
You
you?
could. The only thing is that what'll happen is this, though, is that it's you want to try to get your tissue level of carbon dioxide higher
Okay.
than the rate that gets to your brain and your heart and your
Right.
lungs. Follow that's the dichotomy. Is like so the reason why I recommended those Velcro cinch straps is
This
it's
is
gonna
all blood flow still, yeah.
yeah, so you still but what you could do, like if I had you wired up and we're looking at your heart and your brain and I found no abnormalities, I would do a lot of crazy stuff with you because I know you could handle it.
Mhm.
I don't have that.
I'm all about crazy. So I mean, but yeah. So I'm 63. When I do a high intensity, my heart rate my BP is up to 159, 162, no problem, and recovers within 2 minutes straight down. So I've got big lungs. So yeah, it would be if you want to try.
Well, so what I would try then is the Velcro cinch straps on your arms and legs.
Okay.
So I would first do something like this: warm up normally, like
Mhm.
no low oxygen, high oxygen, no Velcro cinch straps.
Mhm.
And that warm up could be 2 to 5 minutes, whatever it takes for you to feel comfortable.
Right.
Then I would put the Velcro cinch straps on and then do your hypoxic training.
Okay.
And
Now,
then right after that, I would switch to the high oxygen.
okay. Okay. And hypoxic training, so basically a steady state or a high intensity. Um,
Well, initially, steady state, I would try to like keep a steady state pace around 2 to 10 minutes.
okay.
And then really, so you're trying to really stimulate depleted tissue of oxygen so it drives up carbon dioxide.
Mhm.
Then after that, I would go to 10 or 15 minutes with the oxygen and initially steady state. And as you find out, okay, I could handle this, then I would gradually start switching into like interval sprints,
Okay.
low oxygen. Basically, you're trying to push the body to drive up carbon dioxide, but not create a dangerous environment where you can increase risk for stroke or heart attack.
Right. Right. Right.
And as you start seeing where you are, what'll happen is you'll feel literally like your arms and legs are on fire, and then you take off the tourniquets or the cinch straps, and then you do the oxygen. Yeah, and they're gonna feel like they're ballooning up,
Yeah.
and that'll be a good result because it'll get more oxygen into the mass in your neck,
Mhm.
and that'll lead to when you do chemo and radiation, it'll work much better.
Okay. Okay. All righty. That sounds like, listen, this is an adventure, and I'm treating this as a gift, and you're definitely, like the best present ever. So,
Yeah, Tom, you're the biggest Christmas gift under the tree.
so, so
Thank you for saying that.
no, so
I feel a little more pressure now.
Okay,
My-
second biggest.
Yeah, and it only shows up once a year, so you're okay. You got a little time. So okay, all right. So the straps, that sounds very interesting, and I think I can work that out. So basically, the same place you would do tourniquets in here.
Yep.
It's constricting. I totally get it, because obviously the venous is on the outside and the arteries are on the inside, so we're still getting blood flow down there, restricting blood flow, increasing, and then whoosh, let it go. And that's okay. All right.
Gina Sizemore, so funny. I was listening to one of her podcasts and she was just talking about the restricted blood flow and whatnot. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay. Good. So,
Awesome.
all right. So that, and then just the recipe of what you think would be, the, not, should I be doing the pomegranate things, the things that you were talking with Wendy about, or we?
No, I would. So, gosh, I'm not so.
Turkey
I
tail,
don't. Yeah, I don't know yet. Only because I don't know. The menadione and let's say the polydiene or the urolithin A or the L-ergothioneine.
right.
I don't know if they'll like cancel each other out.
Okay.
So right now, because we know there's like, in other words, if you did one or the other, that might be better than both at the same time.
Okay.
I would probably I already have really good data on thousands of cases.
Yeah.
Squamous will do this stuff. So that's what I would focus on, like what I already have history on that works.
Okay.
It's just something else that might work in theory, but I don't have any data on it yet.
Sure.
Okay.
But
So-
I'm willing to be a study. I mean,
Guinea pig.
yeah.
Well, yeah. We'll
we
refer
wanted, I'm sorry, go ahead. No,
No,
it's just because we make sure that whatever we do test, that the odds are stacked on the working side versus the not working side.
Yeah,
That's the
please.
only thing.
Yeah. My background is also a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong. So there's a lot of sort of breathing movement therapy that I've been doing my whole life. So that I don't know how much that helps in the mix, but
Yeah, it definitely does, because it definitely helps in a lot of ways to reduce stress. How are you guys sleeping at night? Do both of you feel like you're getting good enough sleep?
We well, Wendy has sort of the menopausal thing going, and we have a cat that likes to eat at certain times. So, but yeah, sleep sound, but get up and feed the cat at 3 a.m. or
we
whatever.
can put the cat out. I'm a little up and down. Yeah, probably postmenopausal, whatever. But I did take some melatonin, because I'm hearing by many sources melatonin should be added, or is that one of those?
So here's what I would say. Melatonin could be a really good tool, but the timing of the melatonin relative to everything else you're doing. So melatonin functions as a very powerful antioxidant, but it typically there's about an 8-hour window. So in other words, if you took melatonin, let's say at midnight, and then you took your CK3 protocol at 8 in the morning, they won't interfere with each other. But if you took them closer to each other, let's say 6 hours or less, they may neutralize each other. So this is where, like, as you keep throwing more items into the mix, then precision timing becomes more important. And then you get into the issue of the dosing of the melatonin. It seems like if you're looking at like immune system function, endocrine responses, anti-aging, you're looking at 40 to 100 milligrams, and some doctors are pushing 500 plus milligrams of melatonin. The problem then is now that's circulating in your blood when you wake up the next morning, and then you take the CK3, and then that could be neutralizing that. So I would probably, now melatonin works to enhance sleep with a low dose of like 0.5 to maybe 3 milligrams. But you're not getting the immune boosting benefits and all the other benefits at that dose. You got to go way, way higher. So, part of the challenge is like, what's the goal of the melatonin? Right now, I would look at melatonin as more for immune modulation and enhancing endocrine responses. And because there may be other tools that could help you sleep
Mhm.
Yeah.
that don't, and so you don't lose the ability of the melatonin on the immune side.
Like not looking at your phone at 11 o'clock at night.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's yeah. So part of that's just, behavioral, right? So
Yeah,
so
but even then, yeah, it's just the 3 a.m. and it's not all the time. I can shoot you. I do have a supplement that I take. I can shoot you the ingredients,
okay.
see if that's worthwhile. And yeah, and then maybe if with a list of my supplements, just the timing, just put in the timing of when the melatonin should be.
Sure. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'll follow up with you guys a little bit later today with some messages to the portal, with sort of like tests to look at locally,
Mhm.
tests to kind of that will, I guess, ship you kits or whatever possibilities,
Mhm.
and then supplement strategies kind of for where you guys are right now.
Perfect.
Okay, and with the Tempest, can we apply for the same financial assistance?
Yeah. What I'll do is let me I don't remember, was you on the phone when I did it, or do I just do it on my own last time? Do you remember?
You did it on your own.
All right. So then
You sent me a link.
yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just make a time to go over some of this with Greg. So because what happens is once I enter it, I don't have a way of knowing what information I put in. And what I don't want to do is keep saying something different each time. And then they'll be like, because I have to declare, like, if I'm filling it out, I have to put my role. I just put patient advocate.
Mhm.
And then what I just want to make sure is I'm consistent in what I'm saying. So on Tempest's perspective, I don't know if you guys know, but the guy that founded Groupon is who started Tempest.
Wow.
So it's
Okay.
basically an analytics company. And what they know is the money is not in testing, the money is in the data. And so that's where they're very lenient with their,
I figured.
yeah. So they want the numbers anyway, but in terms of for our purposes, we want the Tempest to approve the financial assistance first, because then however many times you do that test going forward, if they tell you $0 or $25 or $100, it'll never be more than that.
Mhm.
Wow.
So, yeah, so we could literally do it monthly if there was a reason to. So like if let's say if I have someone with active, like stage 4 cancer, we're running these tests monthly on them, and people they may not be paying anything at all.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it could save you a lot of money long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can put it towards the gallery and the micronutrients. So
Right, exactly. Other stuff that maybe insurance won't cover or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it makes sense for them because they want the data more. The data from a stage 4 patient monthly is more valuable than anything else, I'm sure. So, okay.
Okay.
All right. You're my hero.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will follow up a little bit later today. It may be kind of like midnight, but I'll follow back up. Okay.
No
See you
immediate
Monday.
rush. And I will edit down this and get it to you. Okay.
Yeah. So probably by the time I'm messaging you, your cat will be ready to eat.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks.